Reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, or REDD+ as it's known, has the potential to mitigate climate change. The world's remaining areas of significant forest are deeply connected with the livelihoods of millions of indigenous peoples and forest-dependent communities. For this reason, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change took a series of decisions to ensure their rights are protected. These decisions, known as the Cancun Safeguards, include provisions to ensure the full and effective participation of relevant stakeholders, including, in particular, indigenous peoples and local communities, in REDD+. The UN REDD program has been supporting countries to respect these safeguards. In Asia Pacific, countries are putting in place mechanisms to promote the full and effective participation of stakeholders, especially forest-dependent stakeholders. Countries are learning the importance and value of supporting civil society organizations and indigenous peoples to participate meaningfully and constructively in REDD+.
Most of the world's remaining forests are homes to the millions of indigenous people. So when you talk about forest, you're talking about the indigenous peoples living inside.
In Vietnam, for example, we have 25 million people living in the forest.
Sri Lanka is a highly populated country, so you get many different groups of civil society organizations and stakeholders. And we have a very small amount of forest which is to be protected for various purposes. So it is very important for us to get their involvement in REDD+ activities to conserve our forests.
If some of stakeholders not involved, it is not success for the implementation.
REDD+ has pioneered channels for dialogue and participation between governments, civil society organizations, and indigenous peoples.
In some countries, the governments are being more open to engage with the indigenous peoples and civil society. Indigenous peoples have been able to achieve some representations at the national level, particularly in some of the REDD+ bodies and working groups.
This is the first time in Vietnam that the ethnic minority person can join decision-making bodies at national level.
Before REDD+ in Myanmar, we can never talk about indigenous people right or FP, but now with REDD+, we can talk about our right, our concern. Now the government also come up with like ethnic right protection law. In there also ethnic is mentioned.
Now we see a little bit positive change. The Department of Forest and the Ministry of Environment and Forest, they are more interested than before in engaging indigenous peoples.
Countries are discovering a number of opportunities and challenges to full and effective participation. This is important learning as governments and stakeholders innovate and improve together. Indigenous peoples and civil society need to organize themselves and represent their constituencies to participate effectively. Supporting this self-organization is critical to leverage and strengthen their networks and representative bodies.
We need to really organize ourselves and then have a consolidated voice from our constituency to say, okay, this is what we need from REDD.
So we need civil society who bring the gaps between the communities to the peoples at the national level. The wise people have no ideas of what is the REDD+, and they cannot participate.
මේ අත්තන්නේ තිබනවා කෝණ පුජ්ජයකට එක වාර පුජ්ජ වරික සභා පුජ්ජ. පුජ්ජල් 6ක් අම්පුජ්ජල් 62ක් මිනික් ගජ්ජුමක් ගච්චිනවා. මන්ද කරන්නේ මේ අත්තෝ සාකච්ඡා පුජ්ජ මන්ද කරන්නේ මේ රෙඩ් කියන මේ වැඩ පුජ්ජෙම්ම මං ගච්චන එකමල්ම තමයි මේ අත්තොත් කතා දමන්නේ.
នៅប្រទេសកម្ពុជារាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលបានប្រជុំផ្សព្វផ្សាយជាមួយអង្គការសង្គមស៊ីវិលក៏ដូចជនជាតិដើមភាគតិចហើយដើម្បីឲ្យជនជាតិដើមភាគតិចយល់ពីសារៈសំខាន់នៃREDDមួយទៀតហើយបានបង្កើតបណ្ដាញREDDបូកក្នុងក្រុមប្រក្រោះយោបល់ចាREDDបូកតាំង15ខេត្តក្រុងនេះចាហើយក្រុមប្រក្រោះយោបល់នៅថ្នាក់ជាតិចា
Civil society organizations and indigenous peoples are working with governments to integrate their perspectives needs, and knowledge into REDD+. Ideally, their participation should result in strategies, policies, and activities that reflect the voice of all stakeholders.
The participation of Indigenous peoples and civil society in REDD+ faces a number of challenges. In particular, it has to be focused, addressing the drivers of deforestation and informing national policies and measures that will actually bring REDD+ results. In addition, the participation of Indigenous peoples and civil society should serve to build partnerships for the effective implementation of REDD+.
There were several outcome documents like the deforestation drive study, institutional study, the community-based REDD+ study, and the private sector study as organized group of the civil society, and we were able to change the vision and to fine-tune these documents and some of the policy recommendations.
In Cambodia, government institution, from civil society, from community, and they participated to develop the draft of the national REDD+ strategy.
The government needs to sensitize their officials, especially those ones who are working with Indigenous peoples. I think information would be the most important thing, so that we know what's happening.
We are invited to attend meetings, to provide inputs, but I think it would be better that we can be involved at the real work of the REDD process.
One of the things we are not clear at the moment is what will be our role in the long term. We also want to get the support from the different line ministry and support from the parliament on REDD+.
Give them a clear message, and it should include how they can involve in forestry activities as well as what sort of benefits they can gain out of their involvement.